Welcome back to another video, Tigercast fans. Tonight we're going to do a bit of an exercise that could divide a lot of people. I saw this one on Twitter and thought it'd be worth having a crack at doing ourselves. And it is to name your top 10 Tiger players from your living memory that you feel are the best players that you've seen. Now, I think some people on Twitter maybe have missed the point of this person's tweet when they put it out there, because they were throwing out names like Royce Hart and Jack Dyer, Kevin Bartlett, who are all great players, please don't get me wrong. But the key to this is it's in your living memory. So on my list, for example, you're not going to see players like Kevin Bartlett or Royce Hart or Maurice Rioli Sr. or anything like that, because I didn't see them play. So I don't have any memories or recollections of them playing. So that's why they won't feature on my list. But they may feature on your list. You might be a bit older than I am, and you might have some greater memories of them playing, in which case you would obviously put them on your list. But I just wanted to clarify that up front before people come running at me saying, why don't I have Kevin Bartlett in there? He's one of our greatest players. That's why. So it's this list is purely based on your living memory, on who you remember seeing play and the impact they've had on you and who you think the best 10 players we've had in your recent living memory. So with that said, let's jump across to my list and we'll go through them one by one. Okay, now here is my list. Now I've got two black panels over the top 5 and then the next 5. I'm going to reveal them one by one. So it's a gradual reveal. We don't want to show everything all at once. But coming in at number 1 is going to be pretty obvious, I think, for most. Number 1, I've got Dustin Martin, who has had a profound impact on a lot of us, really. 302 games, 388 goals, a Brownlow medalist, a 3-time premiership player, a 3-time Norm Smith medalist. I think for me, it was what he was able to do on the big stage was just like none other that I've seen before, not just for Richmond, but for any other club. He just literally went to a complete other level that I don't think anyone else will ever get near again. There's always going to be player comparisons to Dustin Martin along the journey, but in home and away, yeah, okay, fair enough. Some might get close, but in finals, no one will ever match what he was able to do. So for me, Dusty is a clear number 1. Number two for me, and I think a lot of people would probably argue he could be number 1 as well, but Matthew Richardson comes in at number 2. 282 games, 800 goals, 13-time Richmond leading goal scorer. Look, Richo played for us during a lot of bleak periods, and I think it's fair to say that he was a shining light for us through a lot of really, really bad times. Wore his heart on his sleeve, bleeds yellow and black, stood up in big moments, and was almost a Brownlow medalist, and probably should have been. That'll still rub me the wrong way for a long time to come. But Richo was obviously a hero of a lot of people, and gave a lot of us Richmond fans hope in very bad times. So for me, I've got Richo at number 2, but I could quite easily see why he might be at number 1 for a lot of people as well. So Richo at 2. At number 3, I've gone with Jack Riewoldt. And this is where things, I suppose, can get a bit open to interpretation, I guess. But Jack had 347 games, 787 goals, 3-time premiership player, and he was the 12-time Richmond leading goal scorer. Similar to Richo, wore his heart on his sleeve, is a Richmond man through and through. And, you hear stories about he and Koch having a get-together at the end of 2016 to work out, what are we going to do moving forward? There obviously would have been temptation to leave because we were a bit of a rabble at that point in time. But they obviously come up with, the plan to stick together and change whatever we were doing. And, we obviously got the success from it. So I just think he was a huge part of the culture shift. And he held down our forward line for such a long time by himself, and then obviously in partnership with Tom Lynch as well. But he has been so important to our side and our success that I think it would, I don't think you could not have him in your top 5. But Jack Riewoldt at number 3 for me. Number 4, I've gone with Trent Cotchin. Again, similar to Jack, I'll go through his stats first. 306 games, 141 goals, 3-time premiership captain, and a Brownlow medalist. I think the fact he's a 3-time premiership captain speaks enough for itself. Similar to Jack Riewoldt, like I said, could have quite easily walked out and probably had other offers on the table at the end of 2016. Again, he showed tremendous leadership to put his head down, bum up, and change whatever needed to be changed along with the coaching staff, and got the playing group, in the right space and delivered us the ultimate success. And I know there was a lot of conjecture about his captaincy appointment at such a young age. We threw him to the wolves essentially, but He rode the storm pretty well, and he will go down as obviously one of our greatest captains of all time. And I don't think you could not have him in your top five. Just super vital for the club and where we are right now. Number 5, rounding out my top 5. I haven't seen this person on a lot of lists for the people who have done this, which is really interesting to me. But number 5 on my list, I've gone with Shane Edwards. Shane Edwards had 303 games, 189 goals, and a 3-time premiership player. I still to this day feel that he was severely underrated by a lot of people outside of Richmond. Maybe even Richmond supporters themselves maybe underrate him a little bit. He, for a long time, prior to 2017 when it all started to click for us, if you actually go back and watch games from, 2016, 15, 14, he was actually always 1 or 2 steps ahead of everybody else in the field. And because of that, it kind of made him look a bit silly at times because he would be handballing or kicking into areas, into space where he thought players should be, but they just weren't. And maybe he was understanding the game plan and what the coaches were trying to do well ahead of what everyone else was, and they just weren't up to his level yet. But his footy IQ was through the roof. We all know the slick hands out of contest, the handballs over the head, obviously some good forward craft as well. Played halfback as well during some times where we needed players down there, and stood in captain for us as well along the journey too. But Shane Edwards was a super player, extremely durable, and yeah, one of my favourites, and I think he is low-key very, very underrated. So Shane Edwards rounds out my top 5. Moving on to the next 5, which is still a very good achievement, mind you. Coming in at number 6, I've gone with Alex Rance. So Rancey had 200 games, 1 premiership, 9 goals, and Jack Dye medalist in 2015. Now, I don't want people to get caught up in the circumstances in him leaving maybe earlier than he should have, because I want to cast that to one side. That's not what it's about. If we look at Alex Rance, the player, he completely reshaped and redefined our backline once he come into his own. No secret that he was like a bit of a baby giraffe when he first came to the club, and his skills were all over the shop, and yeah, he was just very, very raw. But as he built up his size and his confidence and everything sort of pieced together for him, he became an absolute pillar of our defence. And I know we won 2 flags without him, and a lot of people didn't think we could, but I think him being the player he was kind of helped, between he and Grimes, kind of helped instill a certain level of confidence and team defence, practices that really helped set us up for the years to come. And he's one of the greatest backmen that we've had, and that the competition will have seen for some time as well. So I don't want people to forget how good Rancey was. So I've got him in at number 6. Coming in at number 7, another defender. I was tossing up I almost went Dylan Grimes here, but I just felt this man, Nick Vlastuin, has had a super career. And again, I kind of feel like he's a little bit underrated by people outside of Richmond. 233 games currently, 29 goals, 3 premierships. Like I said, underrated outside of Richmond supporters, I think. And nothing says that more than him not getting All-Australian over Darcy Byrne-Jones, which still irks me and will forever irk me. That should not have happened. But he's just so... You just know what you're getting with Vlastuin week in, week out. He's one of the most consistent performers that we've got. Tough as nails, uncompromising, full of courage, gets the job done. I know he's played in the back line for 98% of his career, but he could quite easily spend other time in midfield or up forward, I think, if we wanted to, but it just hasn't been how it's panned out. He's obviously gone forward a couple of times as well and kicked some big clutch goals. I think there was one against Geelong from maybe at 50-55. He dropped in one of the finals, I believe. Super confident player, and I think if he ever wanted captaincy, I don't think there would be any hesitation in him taking over the role. I don't think he does want it, but he makes other players around him walk taller, and you just know whenever the ball's going into his area, he's more than a half a chance to win the contest, or at least halve it. And that's one of the big things you can really ask from a backman. So Nick Vlastuin in at number 7, super player with plenty more to come, hopefully. Coming in at number 8, gone with Brett Delidio. Again, I don't want people to get caught up about the reasons he left or any things like that. Brett had 243 games, 182 goals, and a 2-time Jack Dye medalist. Similar to Richo, Lids provided a lot of light and a lot of hope in times where there wasn't much for us to cheer about. Super skillful player. had speed for days, beautiful kick, beautiful mark, and it was just a joy to watch. Yeah, you would go to most games knowing that you're going to get a pretty good performance out of Lids. And I know there were times where he got tagged and he maybe got shut out of games and things like that. But I think Tiger supporters going through that phase through the 2000s, you couldn't help but not like Lids and the hope he gave us as supporters. So I think he deserves to be in the top 10 for my recent living memory. Like I said, I don't want to take into account anything else after the Richmond career, but yeah, got Lids in at number 8. Number nine, I've gone back a little bit further, and this is kind of stretching me a little bit. Matthew Knights. So I was tossing up between Matthew Knights and Wayne Campbell. Now, obviously, I was born in '87, so I watched a lot of these guys play, but in terms of remembering how good they were, it was kind of a little bit hard to validate who I wanted to put in. But Matthew Knights ended up being the one I did want to go with. 279 games, 141 goals, club captain, 2-time best and fairest winner. He was just a key core pivotal player to the Richmond midfield through that 90s period. And you would love to have a Matty Knights in your midfield today. Just great user of the ball. Again, uncompromising, and just tough and hard at it. And obviously there was the whole Libba saga as well. But yeah, he for me was a standout player, just someone who was always at the contest, always getting the ball. And I just felt like he deserved a spot in the top 10. And rounding out the top 10 for me, and this one might cause a little bit of conjecture, just because he wasn't at the club for a long time, but I've gone with Ivan Maric. Now, Ivan only played 80 games for us, kicked 33 goals. He was a vice captain at one point as well. And while his resume doesn't have all the sexy bells and whistles that some of the other players might have, and like not even 100 games for us, but I think the most important thing with Ivan Maric is I believe he was undoubtedly the biggest catalyst in our culture change to get us to where we are, or to see the success that we've had. Even though he didn't physically play and wasn't part of it, you hear all those stories about his locker room demeanor with like making sure all the rubbish, like hanging back and picking up all the rubbish after games and putting all the footies away and stuff like that. Just those very simple things and those kind of things of culture he wanted to instill in our playing group. I don't think we can undersell how important that was for us being the team we were during that great period that we had. So, and obviously he wore his heart on his sleeve. He was an absolute beast on the field. The mullet flowing in the breeze, and even if it was raining, it still looked very, very good in the wet. Kicked a couple of great goals, and I'll never forget the elimination final game against Carlton, who had no right to be there, as they knocked us off with Juddy on one leg, and I think Brock McLean played one of his great games of the year that he always did against us. But Ivan tried to put us on his shoulders that day when he kicked that goal, and ran around the 50 with his arms out, the mullet flapping in the breeze. The crowd just erupted. Very, very good memories. But yeah, I just think he was a huge culture driver for the Richmond Footy Club, and that's why I've got him in my top 10. So there you go. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of differing opinions, maybe more so differing positions in the top 10 rather than personnel. Maybe there is some different personnel. But please let me know in the comments below, who would you have as your top 10 best players in your living memory for the Richmond Football Club? Let us know what you've got, and we'll compare notes, and make sure you subscribe and like for more content.